once and he laughed, thinking it was funny I was obsessed with his wrinkles. Hidden in those jovial creases was a lifetime of hope, disappointment, survival, comedy, tragedy, kindness, love, and determination. Sometimes I couldn't understand why he had them. My dad sure hasn't had the easiest life. He was born in Sivas, Turkey, which is in way eastern Turkey, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere with not much going on by today's standards. People joke about walking a mile to school, but he genuinely did, as he would often remind us, whether it was raining or snowing. His womanizing father left, which made him the man of the house at the age of 13 to his mother and sister, instilling in him the vital need to provide for family. It is important to note here that Onder literally translates to in the front. In Turkey, mandatory time in the army is a rite of passage, turning boys to men. The strictness of the army is well known, and he often told me the story, especially every single time when I'd refuse to eat my supper, of how in the Turkish army you had to eat the same beans and rice every day for every meal. If you didn't finish it, you were beaten. One day, he ate his meal and turned to his friend to talk, and someone switched his half-eaten plate with my dad's empty plate. He was subsequently beaten. Eventually, my dad became a sergeant and recalled the 2 years some of the best times with the best friends of his life. He was even asked to stay, but he had other doors to open. While working at a dry cleaner's in Izmir and learning English, he knew his dreams to be a police officer were too dangerous, so he set his pursuits on America, the land of opportunity for those willing to work. An acquaintance of his father took him in New Jersey, and they became a second family to this day to him. He came to this country with nothing and left everything he knew behind, his family, his friends, and his country. In pursuit of the American dream, Onder worked tirelessly, proving himself by scrubbing toilets and cleaning hotel rooms. He told me how he always come across magical people in your life who believe in you and try to push you forward. He would eventually set up banquets and meeting rooms of hundreds of people. His work ethic was noticed, and if you didn't know, became a successful banquet manager for 3 hotels in his 40-year career. His work was his everything, his obsession, and his extended family. All of his co-workers always praised how kind and like a father he was, and even today at the mosque, his staff was here, and they were all telling me how incredibly one of a kind he was, and how he treated them like human beings. He worked over 80 hours a week and all holidays, ensuring other people were celebrating their life milestones at the best level. Upon returning to Turkey for a visit, my mom had made Turkish friends in New Jersey, and in hopes of visiting some, went to an apartment in Yarlug. The first time he went, his friends weren't there, but the second time the door opened, my mom was on the other side. And my dad said he just knew in that moment that she was the one. I asked him how, and he said, I don't know, it's just this unmistakable feeling. So he turned to me and with a stern pointer finger said, so always open the door, Olga. This is actual story of how they met. Yet growing up, my father would often recount that he bought my mom at the flea market. I should also note that my brother thought this was true up until this year. My father truly wanted a family, and it was the most important thing to him. He became a father in 1982 with yours truly, and in 1985 with my brother Okan. And my poor mother, I was nearly 10 pounds, and my brother was nearly 12. When my dad was staring through the nursery window at his newborn son, he overheard someone remark on his huge size, and that he would love to see his father. My dad, with his tall and thin physique, tapped him on the shoulder and proudly declared, "Here I am." Onder's parenting style was quite unique. Now, growing up with Turkish immigrant parents is interesting, especially when you're in a school with Jessicas and Michaels, and here you are, Olga and Okan, blazing through the suburban town of Beechwood. I would come home begging my parents to change my name when kids called me Ogre. My dad would tell me it was a beautiful name and it's okay to be different. I wasn't allowed to wear jeans. My father detested them. I still don't wear jeans to this day. I wasn't allowed to sleep over people's houses. I still asked him for permission to sleep over kitties. I wasn't allowed to ride my bike to the Candy Haven Woolworth by the busy road with friends. And if we knew Dad was home, it meant before a sit-down meal altogether, you better get your act together and act right. For a man of such a thin frame, though he was always loving and joking, he instilled a certain level of sternness in his demeanor. He was not letting go of that Turkish army sergeant title for 1 second, or the work ethic he wanted instilled in us. He attributed any of my ailments to me not liking red meat. When I bring home straight A's, he was happy, but asked why they weren't A+. I wasn't allowed to watch much popular television like Married with Children, but I could watch The Golden Girls. And when I pointed out they were actually quite risque, he said that when I'm their age, I could do whatever it was they were talking about. Now, with that said, as I went off to college and into my 20s, it is safe to say my father and I didn't see eye to eye all the time. In fact, as I was growing, in order to avoid conflict, I would use his tactic and stay quiet. We both would sweep things under the proverbial Turkish carpet and talk about mundane things like the weather. I was always extremely studious, and when I was young, I promised I'd be a doctor. He was so proud. In recent years, the closest I became to being a doctor was by being his witch doctor, as he called me, and introduced me to everyone. You see, when baffled doctors couldn't figure out over the course of a year why he was so sick, I did my own internet research. I deduced that he was suffering from a tapeworm, and me having a knack for natural remedies, found out the cure was papaya seeds.
Oh my God.
So I would have him swallow a spoonful with a dollop of honey, and he would eat it. And let me tell you, chewing papaya seeds is like chewing black pepper. But he still ate it, and I can't believe to this day he ate it. But I digress. Let's just say, though always loving, he didn't understand me, why a studious girl who graduated college with honors in economics would shift her proud immigrant father's dreams and want to pursue a seemingly frivolous life creating costumes. And despite all he shared with me, I didn't quite understand where he was coming from. But we always deeply loved each other. We didn't get each other. In 2014, as I was hoping to transition to LA in pursuit of costuming, we decided that maybe we'd go to Turkey together as a sort of father-daughter adventure, or Babaka's Macera. He was going to show me Sivas, that town in the middle of nowhere where he came from. He wanted to show me who he was. And I should also note that he was such a workaholic, this would be his first trip back to Turkey in over 20 years. That trip in late August, early September 2014 was the most meaningful experience of my life. It was such a gift to see him taking in his homeland, in awe of how much it has changed since he last saw it through his eyes, and how proud he was to show me a sort of tour of his life. It was like a door opening to him. As soon as we landed, he started telling me so many stories I had never heard before. We ate our weight in figs, sweets, and had countless Turkish tea and coffee talks, sharing our dreams, our lives. We walked through the streets of Sivas, finding where his house used to be, where his schools still stand, and twice took the walk from his home to school. We walked in Izmir, where the dry cleaners was, and the beach that he grew up near. We went to his mother's grave, which he had never been to, as he was pursuing his life in America, and he was so emotional, touching the soil of his roots. Our trip was so beautiful, raw, enlightening, and emotional, and I uncontrollably wept behind him as he left for 2 weeks to get back to work. I didn't know why I cried then, except to know now that it was the greatest gift of my life. After we returned late 2014, we opened a door to a whirlwind adventure of a different kind, the start of the fight for his life. It would start 13 hospitalizations, 13 biopsies, over 100 nights in hospitals over the course of a year, and I stayed beside him every single night. He told me one of the times not to worry about him, that he's been a survivor his whole life. He was right. Through everything, laughter was his source of medicine and his fuel to keep going, even when it hurt, even when it didn't make sense to. He started calling himself Humpty Dumpty. He would make jokes when he had yet another surgery that he was just going in for a little tune-up. He told me that to get through life, you need to be a warrior, not a worrier. Along his journey, he thanked every single person, from the valet to the nurses to the doctors, for being a part of his road to healing. He cheered on his fellow fighters in the waiting room. It is this positive attitude that has carried him through every aspect of his life, and even when it's the hardest, those laugh lines still show through. After one battle with cancer, he ended up fighting again. And he didn't once get upset or angry, but said that's life. No matter what you face in life, you have a better chance of overcoming it if you stand up to it. Every treatment, he was the first one in the car at an ungodly early hour and requesting and jamming to Motown music. How I imagine he rode during his commute to work at 5 a.m. every morning. He would go for walks religiously, waving at neighbors and feeding his birds. He never let it define him, but rather took the challenge in stride. This is certainly what carried him to a year and a half of remission. Even in these past 2 months, at times at his very worst, he never once gave up, kept cracking jokes, kept calling me a nutcase, which I kindly reminded him where I get it from, kept defying odds, kept coming back, kept his positive attitude, and even when I asked him if he's strong enough to fight again, he looked at me and said, absolutely. And I picked up my witch doctor duties again one night when I went into the room as he was sleeping, and I am insane, so I carry my own blood pressure cuff. And as I put it around his arm, he woke up startled and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "Taking your blood pressure." And he said, "Should I drop dead right now?" I asked him if he had advice about getting older, and he said, "Sure, stay young. And to always be yourself no matter what." I wish I could remind little ogre that it does get better, especially when your super sweet father is in your corner. My dad was old school and loved to read real newspapers, loved Motown and oldies, loved sweets, loved to watch his fascinating animal documentaries on Nat Geo and murder investigations, get feisty about politics, watch his favorite Turkish soccer team Beşiktaş on his computer. He went from his manager days of suits and ties to Adidas leisure pants. He kept a notebook and a pen on him at all times throughout his life in his shirt pocket and carried a handkerchief. He always said hi, please, and thank you to every single person he came across, and made sure at a young age that if I wanted to have his last name, I did too. He loved to laugh and to make other people laugh, even at his own expense. He even made me buy this button that says blah, blah, blah for when telemarketers called his phone. When I asked him if he's afraid of dying, he would say, when it's your time to kick the bucket, it's your time to kick the bucket. He was a gentleman, he was a wonderful spirit, he was magic. If Onder's example could teach us anything, it is that everything you wish for in this life is possible with hard work, determination, the right attitude, continuously counting your blessings, and a lot of laughter. He probably never perceived as a young boy in Sivas that he would overcome unimaginable obstacles, have a beautiful family, a beautiful wife, own his own home, and make a name for himself in hotel management. Or that he would be internationally known as Papa Turka and inspire so many to smile and keep going. It's just wild what can happen if you simply just open the door.